What's going on, guys? Gomes here back again on an MLB video. Today I want to talk a little bit about the MLB All-Star Game. Of course, you guys know last night they did officially review both the starters. Well, those have already been reviewed for a little bit, but they also reviewed the pitchers and the bench players. Now, I'm not gonna lie, at first glance I was like, you know what, that's not that bad. It's not as bad as I thought we were going to see. It's a little bit better, but after looking at it a little bit more in depth, there definitely is some players that got snubbed and guys that should not be on there. So in this video, I'm going to go over the All-Stars, tell you my opinion whether or not they should be there. Should they be starting? Should they be on the bench? Or should they not even be on the team at all? If you guys would like to see more real-life MLB videos, make sure to leave a like down below and comment down below any other MLB ideas for videos you guys would like to see. First, let's start with the American League. Their starters to be, in fact, and I'm not gonna lie, I think the starters were picked pretty perfectly, if I do say so myself. I think Gary Sanchez absolutely deserves to start at catcher. He's easily been the best offensive catcher within the American League. I think Carlos Santana is probably most deserving as well. There are some other first basemen that had good campaigns so far, but I think Carlos Santana definitely deserves it. DJ LeMahieu, some people were saying Tommy La Stella. I definitely think DJ LeMahieu deserved to be starting at second base over him. For third base, we have Alex Bregman, who some people ride on him for only batting below 270, but his on-base percentage is really good. People were vouching for Harper back when, you know, he was getting on base even more, like the last couple years. Last year in specific, wasn't hitting high, but getting on base. Why aren't they doing the same for Alex Bregman? He's having a fantastic year. At shortstop is Jorge Polanco, who I definitely think deserves it as well. I think he is still towards the top of the American League in batting average and definitely deserves it over other guys such as Lindor, Carlos Correa, Andrelton Simmons, and so on and so forth. For the outfield, we have Mike Trout, Michael Brantley, and then also George Springer. Of course, Springer got put on the IL, missed some time, but before that, he was just tearing it up. He was having such a good year. Mike Trout, pretty obvious, deserves to get that start once again. Still the best player in baseball, in my opinion. And then Michael Brantley really went to surprise pretty much everybody. I mean, I was really happy with the Astros signing him. I thought it was a great pickup. The main problem with Michael Brantley in the past is he would just get hurt, and that would keep him on the sidelines and he wouldn't be able to play. He's been playing the whole year and he's been tearing it up, and I think he definitely does deserve to start at one of those outfield spots. And then finally, Hunter Pence is the DH. Really happy about this one. I thought they might give it to JD Martinez, but Hunter Pence surprisingly won the vote, which I think he very much deserves so, and he's back in the All-Star game, and you love to see it. But as soon as we move into the reserves and pitchers, I start to see some problems. We're going to start with pitchers, and first of all, I just want to say I did not know who the hell John Means was. I looked at this list and I was like, who? But after looking more in depth, 75 innings pitched, 2.5 ERA, 219 opponent batting average, and a 1.1 whip. He does probably deserve to have one of the spots. He's doing pretty well. He hasn't pitched as much as some other candidates, but he is playing pretty well. However, one pitcher I do not think deserves it is Marcus Stroman of the Toronto Blue Jays, and that's where I'm going to open up this conversation. Stop the one All-Star per team minimum rule. I think it's so dumb. The NBA, NFL, or NHL doesn't do it. I don't know why it's always been a thing in baseball for so long where each and every team has to have an all-star representative. I get it. It's kind of unfortunate if your team doesn't have one. It kind of secludes you and it's like, okay, who am I going to support then? But that's kind of how it is. If you're not playing better than those other guys, you shouldn't just be guaranteed an all-star just because your team has to have one. Marcus Stroman hasn't been bad at 3.18 ERA, 249 opponent batting average, and a 1.26 whip. But after I show you guys these other four candidate statistics, I think you'll agree Stroman does not deserve it. I found four other starting pitcher candidates that deserved it more than Marcus Stroman. The first is my Tampa Bay Rays. No, that is not a homer pick. He's been really, really good at 3.1 ERA, 8th in the American League with a 214 opponent batting average, and 2nd in the American League with a 1.00 whip, only behind Justin Verlander. Trevor Bauer has, you know, it's kind of slipped in performance from last year. He was a Cy Young candidate, not so much this year, but still playing really well. 3.55 ERA. He's 4th in the league in opponent batting average with a 2.05 and a 1.14 whip. His teammate Shane Justin Bieber, a 3.54 ERA, 9th in the American League with a 219 opponent batting average, and 6th in the American League with a 1.04 whip. And then finally for the Minnesota Twins, Jose Barrios, a 2.89 ERA, 235 opponent batting average, and 9th in the American League with a 1.08 whip. All four of those guys I think are much more deserving than Marcus Stroman, but of course, because the Blue Jays have to have a representative, and I don't know who the hell else would be it, Marcus Stroman has to make it. Now let's get into the bench players, the reserves. 3 position players in specific I think probably maybe should have been off this list and been replaced by somebody else. First of all, I think Mookie Betts. I know he was the MVP last year. I know the Red Sox are big, whatever. Mookie Betts does not deserve it this year. He is hitting 261, 14 home runs, 835 OPS. 2 outfielders I think were much more deserving. One is Trey Mancini of the Baltimore Orioles. I know. He has a 302. He's hitting 302, 17 home runs, and a 901 OPS. And then also Max Kepler hitting 269, 21 home runs, and an OPS of 892. Does pretty much everything. I know Mookie Betts is a better defender than both of them, but they're both clearly hitting better than him, and both of them deserve to make it over Mookie Betts. All-Star games in Cleveland, well aware of that. That does not mean Francisco Lindor necessarily should have made it. Like I said, Bauer or Bieber should have made it over Stroman, and Francisco Lindor should not have made it. He's having a good year, hitting 291, 12 home runs, OPS of 848. But I think there's 3, second base / shortstop players that should have made it besides him. One, of course, is Gleyber Torres, having a really nice year, hitting 295, 19 home runs, 913 OPS. Rafael Devers is doing really well once again for the Boston Red Sox. 322 batting average, 12 home runs, 897 OPS. And then finally, Xander Bogaerts. Criminal that him or Gleyber Torres did not get the spot over Francisco Lindor. Hitting 299, 16 home runs, 932 OPS. That's just considerably better than Francisco Lindor. The only reason I can think is partly because it's in Cleveland and he's a bigger name. He's been here before, been here and more recognizable than Xander Bogaerts and Gleyber and Devers, but all 3 of those deserved it more than him. And then finally, over at first base, you guys know, Rays fan, not a Yankees fan, but I think Luke Voit should have went at the first base reserve opposed to Jose Abreu. I know Luke Voit did recently just get on the IL. Maybe that has something to do with it, but the stats don't lie. He's hitting 280, 17 home runs, 901 OPS, compared to Jose Abreu hitting 268, 19 home runs, 817 OPS. Stats don't lie, numbers don't lie. Luke Voit should have been over Jose Abreu. Other than that, I think it's pretty fair. I like, once again, how the starters ended up. I think they're pretty much picture perfect in my opinion. I wouldn't change anything there, but some pitchers didn't deserve it, and then some role players or reserves should have been switched out as well. Now, moving on to the National League, once again, pretty similar. At first glance, I was like, hey, this looks pretty good. A lot better than I was expecting, because the MLB All-Star Game has usually had some crazy stuff. Remember back in, I believe it was 2015, 2016, where we had like 6 Royals. Alcides Escobar was starting the All-Star Game. But after looking more in depth, I do think there are some changes I would make. For starters, within the starters, I think Charlie Blackmon probably deserved to start the All-Star Game over Ronald Acuna Jr. Blackmon is hitting 337, 20 home runs, 1,036 OPS. You might say that's the course effect, but once again, the stats don't lie. This is the All-Star Game. We're looking at numbers, not necessarily where they play. And then Acuna still having a really good year as well, 295, 20 home runs, 889 OPS, but Charlie Blackmon has been better, so I think he deserved that starting spot a bit more. However, both of them are all-stars and they both deserved it. Once again, we run into the same dilemma where I do not think every single team deserves an all-star representative, and of course that usually runs in those more so not good teams, and we're looking at Sandy Alcantara of the Miami Marlins. Originally, I thought Caleb Smith was going to be their all-star representative, but I think he got hurt and he hasn't been playing. He only has like 65 innings pitched, so that makes sense why Alcantara was picked instead of him. He has a 3.86 ERA, 255 opponent batting average, 1.40 whip. That's not bad, but it's also not crazy good, and I think these 2 other pitchers deserved it more. Both of them representing the DC area, the first being Patrick Corbin, newly acquired from the Arizona Diamondbacks, 3.71 ERA, 9th in the NL with a 223 opponent batting average and a 1.16 whip. And then once again, his teammate Steven Strasburg with a 3.88 ERA, 8th in the National League with a 223 opponent batting average, and 6th in the National League with a 1.07 whip, along with 124 strikeouts. Both of those guys deserved it a hell of a lot more than Sandy Alcantara, but The Miami Marlins have to have an all-star, so those two are snubbed. I think the reserves were a lot better within the National League. I think it might be because there just aren't as many deserving guys, so there's not as many cat fights, whether who should have got it, who shouldn't have. But I do think there's one in particular, and that is Paul DeJong of the St. Louis Cardinals. Once again, this is just because they have to have one all-star representative. He started off really hot within the start of the season, but he's kind of cooled off. Hitting 260, 13 home runs, 803 OPS. Two guys that I would have picked over him. First, of course, being Eddie Escobar of the Arizona Diamondbacks, hitting 293, 18 home runs, 893 OPS. Then Manny Machado, once again, he started slow, but has really started to heat up as time has gone on for the San Diego Padres, hitting 277, 20 home runs, 869 OPS cumulative within the 2019 campaign. Other than that, I'm happy with the National League reserves. I think Pete Alonso and Jeff McNeil, I was going to be pretty upset if they did not make it, because although the Mets have been disappointing, they've really been the two guys really keeping that fire alive for that team. They've been really nice for the New York Mets, and I'm glad that they are representing the Mets in the All-Star game. So that is my opinion on who should have made the All-Star team and who shouldn't have made the All-Star team. Let me know down below in the comment section if you agree with my picks or if you do not agree. Once again, one of the main problems within the All-Star game, in my opinion, is that each team should not be guaranteed an All-Star. It isn't as bad as some other years have been where, you know, the teams have no rightful candidates whatsoever. Like, John Means is alright, but I think Trey Mancini should have got it regardless instead of Mookie Betts, and I would have been more happy with that pick. Marcus Stroman, I don't think really deserved it, but then again, the Blue Jays didn't have any other picks. I think Ken Giles maybe could have been a better choice for them, but then again, you have Shane Green being the Tigers' only representative, and it's really confusing because you have teams that aren't performing well that have to have at least one All-Star, and it's really hard to decipher who that's going to be. At first, I was extremely worried with how the All-Star game is set up. Of course, they did something different this year with the voting. You know, you voted for the top three at each position, and then the fans deciphered from those three who would start the All-Star game. Like I said, at first I was worried. You know, Judge was one of the finalists, and he was still within 1% of starting in the All-Star game despite playing 20-some-odd games, which is crazy, but luckily, I think it all worked out pretty well. Other than, you know, the swap between Acuna and Blackmon, I think it's perfect. I would not change anything else within the starters of the All-Star game. And then the managers are responsible for picking both the reserve players and the pitchers. I think they did a pretty good job for what it's worth. There's a couple that I disagree with, you know, like Mookie Betts, Francisco Lindor. Their teams already had All-Star representatives, so I don't think they needed another one on top of that, because I think there were more deserving players that got snubbed. Of course, there could still be injury replacements that possibly give them a spot within the All-Star team, but we're going to have to wait and see for that. Once again, if you guys did enjoy this video, make sure to like down below. Hope you guys have a great day. There, guys, I'm Saudi.